This episode is brought to you by Buzzshot, Cogs by Clockwork Dog, PG's Playhouse, and Patreon supporters like you.
Hey, escape room owners. Are you still trying to solve the marketing puzzle? Buzzshot to the rescue. Buzzshot is the secret weapon powering business growth and improving the customer experience. This is software with a ton of pre- and post-game features, including waiver management, creating incredible branded team photos, and streamlined review management for Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, wherever people review. And they also offer integrations with Cogs. Automations is one of the best ways to run your escape room business more efficiently. There are a ton of things you can do, including automated marketing emails to automatically advertise your second room to all the players who have already played the first game. Buzzshot can also automate uploading post-game photos directly to Facebook albums. There are a ton of other features, so check out Buzzshot today.
Dave Milligan of Time Escape says, Buzzshot is the best automation for the most awkward but crucial tasks and is invaluable in our marketing strategy. Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. Repod listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/repod, that's REPOD, to learn more. Link and details in the show notes. Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod, your lifeline when you need a getaway from the real world. I'm David Spira, alongside my co-host, PG Law. Together, we're exploring immersive gaming from all angles, and we'll be joined by guests who really know their stuff. Today's guest is Will Shortz. Since 1987, he has served as NPR's puzzle master, and since 1993, he has been the puzzle editor for the New York Times. Along the way, he has published an astonishing number of puzzle books, and in my opinion, done more to elevate public consciousness of puzzles than any other individual in history. Welcome, Will.
Thanks a lot, David.
So, Will, I first learned about you when I was at the airport on my way to get on a flight to go play the reality TV show Survivor. And when I was in the airport, I bought this Sudoku book, and our listeners at home can't see, but it says, Will Shortz presents I Love Sudoku. This was in 2007. I still have this book. And for the week before we started, all I did was sit and do the Sudoku book, and I stared at your name for that entire week before. So you don't know this, but you were my constant companion during that time when I was stressed and I needed a little bit of relaxation and relief. I have a whole other story about how you led me to say probably my most well-known quote on Survivor, but I'll save that for the bonus show.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me they spend a lot of time in bed with me.
Absolutely true. And you've also been a constant companion for a lot of our other guests. Your name has come up so much on this show. And not only that, you've also helped inspire our newest show, PG's Playhouse, which is a actual play puzzle podcast. And it's because I love the Sunday puzzle. I'd really like to hear about the genesis of the NPR Sunday Puzzle. How did that come about?
Susan Stamberg started a new program, Weekend Edition Sunday, on NPR in January 1987. And she wanted the show to be the radio equivalent of a Sunday newspaper. It would have news and features and culture. But we all know one of the most popular parts of the Sunday newspaper is the games section or the puzzles.
Certainly the most important part.
The most important part, I agree. Her inquiries made their way to me, and I thought, sure, let's give this a try. And the question is, how do you do puzzles on the radio? It can't be a crossword, which is a visual medium. It also can't be something that makes people sit and think for 10 minutes in silence, because that doesn't work well for radio. So I came up with a format. Originally, I just gave quick word puzzles to Susan Stamberg, and she turned the reins over to Leanne Hansen, who was at the show for maybe 15, 20 years, I'm not sure. And Leanne was the one who made it a weekly feature. At some point, in addition to the puzzle that I gave Leanne, I gave a challenge puzzle for listeners at home, and people would send in their answers, and one person who was correct would be chosen at random to appear on the next week's program. So that's how the puzzle thing has come about. Honestly, I don't think this has ever been done on the radio before me, and I'm not aware of anyone else who's ever done it since.
Wow, that sounds so familiar because when I wanted to make the show PG's Playhouse, I wanted it to feel like a board game night where you're asking each other silly questions and puzzles and you're having a laugh and then also talking about some interesting topics or trivia. So that really tracks.
Nice. Yeah, the play of games is wonderful, but the best games allow you to stop in the middle of a question or in the middle of a game and just interact with the other people socially. And games will present situations and bring up topics that you would never think to bring up otherwise. That's one of the reasons I like games so much.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about crossword puzzles with you. So I got a whole bunch of questions for you. Crosswords, like so many things, change with time and culture. What are some of the key things that you changed about the New York Times crossword puzzle when it became your responsibility?
Well, when I was interviewed for the job, I was asked, if you were the crossword editor, what would you do differently? And I said, the first thing I would do is what I will keep, and that is the intellectual caliber of the New York Times crossword, because I didn't want that to change. But what I would do, number one, I introduced bylines on the weekday puzzle, which had never been done before, because I thought the puzzle makers deserved the credit. And I also knew that if they had their names on the puzzle, they would be encouraged to give me their very best work. So it improved the quality of the puzzle at the same time. And then I wanted the crossword to reflect everything that's going on in the world today, including our language and culture and events. So it's not just bookish things from the dictionary, but it should have things that you learned in school long ago and classical culture, but it should also have TV, movies, popular music, sports, and everything going on in the world, because I want the crossword to reflect life as it is today, life and language as it is today.
Pop culture and slang.
Absolutely. One of my early puzzles had the answer, no way, Jose. And I remember someone from Bulgaria wrote me that he was an English as a second language speaker, and he had never heard the phrase, no way, Jose. And he thought that was inappropriate to appear in a crossword. And I thought just the opposite. That's just a familiar phrase people know, so that should appear in the crossword.
When do you decide if a slang is popular enough to warrant inclusion? Are crossword puzzles today using skibbity or Riz or, whatever the slang that these Gen Zers are using?
I have two tests. First of all, do I know the term? If it's sunk into my brain, it's probably sunk into a lot of people's brains. But it's not just me. If I don't know something, I will go online and see how many hits it gets on Google, or I can ask friends. So I don't have to know everything that appears in the New York Times crossword. And I'll tell you another story. Years ago, when Britney Spears was big, someone sent me a puzzle in which the middle 15-letter answer across the diagram was, oops, I did it again. And this had been a number one hit just in recent weeks. And I thought, I wasn't sure that Oops, I Did It Again had cultural significance, but it would last a long time. There's a lot of number one songs that come and go, and you hardly even know anything about them. So I told them, I'm not ready to accept this puzzle now. Let's wait 6 months and see if this has entered the popular discourse. And of course, as we all know, it did. So 6 months later, I accepted the puzzle and ran it.
That's a really good approach to that, instead of just outright rejecting, kind of putting that one on the back burner for a minute.
Exactly.
At this point in your life, what do you feel makes for a great crossword puzzle? And how has your opinion shifted over the course of your career?
Interesting. I think the bedrock principles haven't changed. A crossword should reflect the language and culture to the extent that we have a common language and culture. And it's really hard to have a puzzle that is right for everybody. because the language and culture of an 18-year-old is going to be different from someone who's 70, 80, or 90, or even 40 and 50. So I like to have a little of everybody's culture in the puzzle. And that's why it's good to have lots of different puzzle makers. If you have a very diverse group of contributors, then that's going to make better connections with solvers. So what makes a good puzzle? It's partly the day of the week. Monday starts in the New York Times is pretty easy. It builds up to very hard on Friday and Saturday. I'd like almost everything in a Monday puzzle to be something that you know and clues that you can easily figure out. And Friday and Saturday should really test your solving ability to the extreme.
There is a ton of discourse over each and every New York Times crossword puzzle. How has your relationship with that discourse shifted over time?
Yes, I'll tell you, there's no other crossword that gets dissected as much in public as the Times crossword.
I believe you are correct about that.
And there are 3, 4, or 5 daily blogs about it. I used to read them religiously. To me, it was like a performer on stage getting feedback from the audience, applause or laughs or just blank stares, whatever. And I wanted to see what solvers were saying, which would improve my editing and my choice of puzzles. Nowadays, after I've been doing this for more than 30 years, I don't read all the blogs anymore, but I read several of them because it's still nice to get the feedback from people, seeing what they like and what they don't like or what they don't understand.
Was there discourse or feedback that really changed how you were editing the puzzles?
One thing jumps to mind. I also direct the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament. And the very first year, we didn't know who was going to come to the tournament. I thought everyone who came to a crossword tournament would be a super genius who would want really hard puzzles. So I remember one of the answers that first year was arrow, A-R-R-O-W. And there's lots of interesting, fun ways you can clue arrow. But I clued it with a definition from the depths of the unabridged dictionary, which means to move quickly. And someone can arrow, they can move quickly. There was a newspaper article about the tournament. Someone complained about the clue for arrow. My first reaction was, oh, come on, that's in the dictionary. That's a legitimate clue. And then I thought some more. I thought, no, that's a stupid clue because that's not how people use the word arrow.
I have been guilty of using some archaic definitions in puzzles for PG's Playhouse that David has also complained about, so I understand the situation completely. Will, if I could give you a magic wand that would eliminate one common mistake that aspiring crossword constructors make, what mistake would you magic out of existence?
Wow. Let me think about this. No one thing jumps to mind, but for the New York Times, we're always looking for fresh ideas on themes, things that will relate, that everyone can connect with. There are a couple of kinds of themes we get over and over. Words that, let's say, 4 answers in which you can follow each of them with the word board, like above board and motorboard and things like that. That's a very common kind of theme. I think the all-time worst theme I ever got, someone that anagrammed Adolf Hitler in 4 different ways and put those answers in the grid. And it's just amazing to me to think someone would think that's a fun topic for a crossword.
Oof.
When you're talking about themes, I know that the Wednesday puzzle tends to have a more particular, unique mechanic. Does every other crossword puzzle also have a overlaying theme?
A Monday crossword should have a simple theme with answers like real phrases and real words that you know. Then we can start to be a little playful on Tuesday and Wednesday. Usually Wednesday themes often have punny things or things that aren't regular phrases. Then on Thursday, that's sort of tricky day where we have wordplay tricks. Answers might read backward or all sorts of things you can do on a Thursday. And Friday and Saturday puzzles do not have themes typically. They're just collections of interesting words and phrases with lots of white squares and very few black squares. And if you have a puzzle where, the average length of the answer is more than 6 letters, say, that will be more challenging to solve, naturally more challenging than something with a lot of 3 and 4 letter words. The problem with 3 and 4 letter words is that there's only so many of them in the English language. So the same ones come up again and again. I can write a new clue for Yoko Ono, say, or O-R-E, but yeah, it's not going to fool anyone for long because they know those answers so well.
I see Anna de Armas all the time.
Thank God for Anna de Armas.
PG, for me, the Patreon has been the lifeblood of absolutely everything that we do here. And I don't know how we could possibly do it without all of our patrons.
Yeah, so not only has the Patreon support been funding all of our endeavors, but you guys are also inspiring a lot of our content. You know, I wouldn't be making the bonus content if it wasn't for the patrons, because I wanted to have a place where we could have more conversational chats and just really kind of goof around and just have some fun with our guests.
Yeah, it really is such an incredible group of people. And the time that I spend interacting with everybody, there's never been a point in time where I have looked at it and said, oh, I wish I was doing something else other than engaging with our patrons. Like, I just love this community of people. It is so incredibly kind and also so damn inspiring.
Yeah, if you are looking for your people, you love talking about immersive games, escape rooms, puzzles, you're looking for a community, well, look no further, and you should definitely join our Patreon because it is a bunch of like-minded, very kind people. They're super, super welcoming. Join the Discord. That's where a lot of interesting chats and discussions are taking place.
Come on in, chat, lurk, chat occasionally, do whatever you want. It's $2 a month. It's basically nothing. But when enough people are giving us $2 a month, it goes so far and allows us to do things like pay ourselves and pay our people. And you can learn more about that at patreon.com/roomescapeartist. Thank you to all of our patrons, and thank you to you for considering supporting us. You have these more elaborate puzzles on Friday and Saturday that often do interesting things like break the grid or have more than one letter inside of a square.
Right.
How often have the software engineers at the New York Times gotten really angry at you?
Well, every time we have a special puzzle and it breaks some rule, and when we accept the puzzle, we write the engineers at the Times and say, can you program this so we can run this puzzle? We tend not to do that if it's going to be a lot of engineering for one type of gimmick that will never run again. But if it's a gimmick that we think we might repeat, maybe it's worthwhile asking the programmers to do something special. They probably have a love-hate relationship with us.
That is a great question. I did a puzzle last week where usually one letter goes in one square, and the answer for that was like over/under. And I was like, I don't know how to type this.
Yeah. I'm not sure what you should do.
So, Will, how has the crossword puzzle submission process changed over your career?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I was hired in 1993, well, I was 17 years younger than my predecessor, and I was the youngest New York Times crossword editor. I think part of the reason I was chosen was that they thought a young person might be able to adapt to the coming digital revolution. In those early days, every crossword submission came in by postal mail, and I would reply by postal mail. And then over time, all the puzzles were submitted by postal mail, but I replied by email. And nowadays, everything is done digitally. The New York Times has a portal where you submit a PDF of your crossword, and it's looked at, and you get a reply that way. That's how the submission has changed. Also, in the early days, I told you it was a department of one. So I looked at everything myself and replied to everything myself. Nowadays, the New York Times has a lot of games besides the crossword. There's the mini crossword. There's Wordle. There's the new game Pips. There's Strands. I think there are 7 of us in the editorial department. We don't go into the New York Times building. We are located all over. I'm in Westchester County, New York. We have one person in Brooklyn, I think one in Buffalo, New York, one in Ann Arbor, Michigan. one in Ames, Iowa, and one in Philadelphia, and a couple others elsewhere. And, we meet multiple times in the week to discuss the puzzles, and we all work digitally now.
How many submissions do you get from new constructors on a weekly basis?
Wow. We get close to 200 submissions a week. I've never counted how many come from new people, but this is one field in which newcomers are very welcome. If you've never had a puzzle published before, it doesn't matter. Send it to us if you think you have something great, and we'll consider it, and you will get an answer.
Love that. You just mentioned the Mini and all of the other daily puzzles that exist on the New York Times. And I'd like to talk about how these tiny daily puzzles have impacted the audience of the New York Times puzzle section.
Yeah, well, a couple of answers to that. First of all, it's very profitable for the New York Times because there are literally millions of people who have subscribed to the puzzles section.
It does seem from an outsider's perspective like the New York Times is increasingly becoming a puzzle company that happens to also publish some news.
You're not the first person to say that. Yeah, and I think the puzzles are perfect for the New York Times audience because the paper attracts smart, educated, well-rounded, and people who are up on the news. And these sorts of people like us, actually, we use our minds all the time. And when we're done with our regular work, our minds don't stop. Our minds have to keep working on something else. Puzzles are a good way for our minds to keep active. A lot of these new puzzles are nice because they don't take a lot of time. If you're going to solve a regular New York Times crossword, most people take, even for an easy puzzle, probably take 3, 4, or 5 minutes. And on a hard puzzle, it would be a half hour or an hour or even more. Whereas if you play Wordle, which I do every day, it takes about a minute or two to do it. And you can easily slip that into your day, no matter when you want to do it. You can do it when you first get up. You can do it when you're going to bed at night. I tend to be a night owl. I go to bed after midnight, and Wordle is posted at midnight every night.
Don't I know it?
So I'm able to do it as soon as it comes up. Here's something else I learned last year when I was in China. Wordle comes up at midnight at your time zone, no matter where you are. Something that used to puzzle me. Like I would solve Wordle like at 12:02 a.m. And they were already told me that I was, compared to other solvers, I was in 76th percentile or whatever. So how the hell did all these other people beat me to the puzzle? And now I understand there are people who are in time zones before me.
I love the Mini. For me, those were like the gateway drug to having the confidence to tackle the larger crosswords.
Exactly.
My mom has a completely ridiculous suite of daily mini puzzles from a variety of different sources that she does essentially every single day. I love seeing it.
I think more people are doing puzzles now than ever before. And here's something I've noticed. If you go back, say, 10 years and you meet somebody new, a natural thing to ask fairly early in the conversation is, what movies have you seen lately? And then you compare notes. Probably if you go back 50 years, people ask, what books are you reading now? And you discuss those. Nowadays, people ask, how did you do on Wordle today?
I'm wondering, what is your starting word selection method for Wordle?
Well, I read several years ago that the optimal starting word is arose, A-R-O-S-E. I adopted that as my first. Since other mathematicians have studied this and said that's not the very best one, maybe it's in the top 10. But when I start Wordle, I don't want to have to think. It's nice. I just plop in arose. If I don't get good results from arose, then my next word is either unity, U-N-I-T-Y, because that tests all 3 other vowels that I haven't already tested. Or I'll do tulip to test the U and the I and get 3 good consonants out of it.
I like that. My wife and I, we do all of these minis together, and our method is we do the mini crossword first, and then select a 5-letter word from that, and then input that as our starting word.
Wow. Have you ever got it on number 1 on your first answer?
No, we have, however, had to choose between 2 words and chosen the wrong word.
Wow. Interesting.
I'll say getting it in 1 doesn't feel special because it just feels like a lucky guess. Whereas I think getting it in 2 is really the celebratory. That's what you're striving for, is getting it on the second try.
Exactly. Of course, a lot of luck involved in that too. Based on the word that you use first, do you get really good information that you can make an educated guess next time?
I will say, I think that the purchase of Wordle really helped a lot because, before then, I didn't even know about all of the mini games that the New York Times had. But of course, everybody was playing Wordle at that time. And it was for a society that's sometimes so disjointed because of the different types of media we can get. It seemed like a really unifying thing. Everybody was playing Wordle and it was all the same word. And so I think, and also the dollar amount, we're like, oh my gosh, for this simple puzzle game, and they paid how much for it? So it really made a splash. And I think that it turned a lot of people on to the games and the New York Times crossword puzzle. So I think it really attracted a larger audience for it. And now I'm curious, how do you think having a larger audience, how has that changed the puzzle, or has it?
Having a larger audience, no, I don't think that's changed the puzzle. What you were telling me before, though, reminds me that once I was interviewed by a radio person on a conservative outlet, and the guy told me that he couldn't stand the New York Times because of its liberal positions, but the one thing he will get the Times for is the crossword. So I felt really good about that.
Uniting people from all over the nation.
Right.
Are there any crossword frontiers that you would really like to see pushed or broken that the audience does not yet appear ready for?
Wow. Huh. There are things that have been tried. A few years ago, there was a new outlet for crosswords where the clues had opinions in them. The clues that I write or edit try to be neutral. So it doesn't matter what you believe, the clue will be a fact. And this crossword had clues that were highly opinionated, which was nice, if you agreed with the puzzle maker's viewpoint. But if you didn't, I don't think you would do that puzzle. I think you will reach a wider audience if you have neutral clues. So maybe that's one frontier.
That's an interesting one at the very least.
What you mean, like this is the best ice cream in the world, and the answer is like Ben and Jerry's or something, like opinionated in that way?
It could be that way. That would be just for fun, though. No, it would be political opinions.
Got it. I have long known that you ran the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament. I didn't realize that you had founded it in 1978. It's just one of those things that felt like it was always there.
Right.
From your perspective, what are the key differences between a difficult, casual crossword puzzle and a competitive crossword puzzle?
Well, I don't think there's any difference. A good puzzle is a good puzzle. And every puzzle that I run in the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament could appear in the New York Times. There's a playoff puzzle at the end of the tournament. There's 7 preliminary puzzles in the contest, and people score points for accuracy and speed. Then the top solvers come on stage at the end of the tournament and solve one final puzzle on giant boards while everyone watches. And that puzzle I try very hard to make as neutral as possible. I wouldn't want that puzzle to skew young or skew old or require particular knowledge which a person might not have. So I want it to be a well-rounded test of their solving skill.
That seems sensible. Having spent so much time with both casual and competitive crossword puzzlers, what do you see as the most significant difference in the approach between these two types of solvers?
Well, if you were coming to the crossword tournament for the first time, what you should do is try to imagine you're at home, and however you solve your puzzles at home, that's how you should solve them at the tournament. Some people come in and think, okay, I have to be really fast. Let me change my style. And years ago, someone thought they would save precious seconds by, and so normally if you write the letter E, first you do an L, and then you do 2 more crossbars horizontal, which takes 3 or 4 strokes, depending on how you count. And they thought they would do a lowercase e, just a swirl. And E is the most common letter in the English language. So they thought they would save a fraction of a second every time they do the letter E as a small letter E. But, if you change your style and writing style when you enter a tournament, that's just going to slow you down. So I don't think that person did very well in the tournament.
My biggest strategy, and I am nowhere near a competitive solver at all. I barely can get past Thursday puzzles. But doing the down first instead of across was like a huge game changer for me. So anybody who's a casual solver like me, there you go. The down answers are shorter and it's usually easier. Once you have those filled in, the across answers will be a little bit easier.
Yeah, start with the shorter answers because there's, as I mentioned earlier, there are fewer 3 and 4 letter words in the language than there are 6, 7, 8 letter words. So get those little things that you know for sure and then build out from there.
So, Will, you got your start at Games Magazine. This publication has come up so many times over the years on this show. A lot of our guests either worked there or they subscribed to it. It has inspired so many of our guests. Can you tell us about Games Magazine? What was it? What did it do?
In 1977, I had just graduated from law school. I was working for Penny Press Puzzle Magazines, which is still one of the major crossword magazine companies. In fact, there's really only 2 of them left, and that's one of them. And I was a charter subscriber to Games Magazine, which started in 1977. I loved that magazine because it had done so much of what I wanted to do in a puzzle magazine. It had clever work. It was puzzles of all types, very sophisticated things of great popular appeal. It sort of made me jealous that someone else came out with it. In January 1978, I left Penny Press and figure out what am I going to do now that I don't have this job. In the old days, when there was an editorial position that came open somewhere, they would put a classified ad in the New York Times. And there was an ad in the New York Times for a puzzle editing position. And from the wording of the ad, I was certain that it was for games. Well, you were supposed to submit your resume to a P.O. box, but I figured I would beat the competition by going into the games office, which is what I did. I put on a coat and tie and walked into games and announced I was there for their opening. And it turned out it was not their ad and they did not have an opening, but the editor saw me anyway. We hit it off. I got freelance work. And then by the end of the year, I had a job at Games. It was a great atmosphere. It was not only puzzles, of course, it was games. It was articles about playful things. And it had advertising. One of the cool things about the magazine, if I would make a puzzle, I could take it into the office of one of my colleagues and sit and watch as he solved it. And I'd see what he liked and what he didn't like or what he stumbled over. And that really helped me become a better puzzle maker. And similarly, other people would come into my office and I would test their things. It was just a great playful atmosphere. And it was a fun place to be around. Everyone, very creative environment. We would all bounce ideas off each other.
One of those creative ideas is a hidden contest. What were these?
Yeah, so Games had regular ads, and we turned everything into a game. We had a fake advertisement in every issue, and normally we would have 3, 4, 5, or 6 fake ads waiting, depending on what ad slot was not sold. Could be a full page ad, it could be a half page. Or let's say we had 3/4 of a page of advertising booked, but there was this little spot left over. We could slot in one of the fake ads that we had produced. And we tried to make them look like they were real. But if you looked at them real carefully, you could see that they weren't. The magazine itself was a plaything. The magazine was like a toy. You would look through it, look through the issue, and find the fake ad.
What do you get when you mix pals, puzzles, and trivia? That's right, it's PG's Playhouse, our newest podcast where you can play along with our guests through some games featuring a blend of wordplay and trivia.
Then I share an interesting bit of trivia, lore, or history based on the episode's theme.
The theme for episode 7 of PG's Playhouse was the Bat Bomb, and our game was called Off the Bat, where every answer is a word containing the letters B-A-T in order. The clue is a cocktail. Stick around to the end of this segment for the answer.
In this episode, I tell the story of a completely insane weapon that was built and tested during the World War II era. That was kind of like a piñata filled with grenades that happened to all be attached to bats.
It's a wild episode, and you should definitely check it out. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can just search for PG's Playhouse or click the link in our show notes. Oh, and the answer to a word for cocktail that contains the word bat is libation.
Libation.
Join us on PG's Playhouse and play along.
You have a significant book collection. Please correct me if this is incorrect, but the collection totals more than 20,000 puzzle books, with the oldest dating back to 1545.
I'll correct you. I have more than 30,000 puzzle books and magazines dating back to 1533.
That's an incredible actually.
I believe it's the world's largest private collection of puzzle books and magazines. And they're of all types, obviously. Word puzzles, math puzzles, brain teasers, really anything. Any kind of puzzle. That book of 1533 puzzles, honestly, is not very interesting. It's a collection of riddles in Latin, where a riddle might be 4 or 6 lines, and then the answer could take multiple pages to explain.
Gotta love elegance.
I think any puzzle that needs multiple pages to explain probably is not a good puzzle.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. Now, what are the crown jewels within this collection from your perspective?
Well, maybe the world's first crossword. It appeared in the New York World, an old newspaper, on December 21, 1913. And it was a very primitive crossword. It was in the shape of a hollow diamond. It was a popular puzzle, so it became a regular feature in the world. And I'll tell you how I got this. The New York Historical Society used to have a complete run of the New York World in bound volumes, but everything had been digitized. So they decided to deaccession their New York Worlds. They were sold to a newspaper dealer, and they went into a warehouse in Mount Vernon, New York. The guy who owned this collection couldn't go in their warehouse because of the dust. He was allergic to the dust in the warehouse. He knew that I was interested in the puzzle sections of this newspaper. What he was interested in was the comic sections from the paper. To him, that was the valuable part, which he could resell. So we made a deal. He would let me go into the warehouse and remove comic sections for him, remove them from the bound volumes, which he would then sell. And in return for each comic section I removed, I could keep a puzzle section. So I went into this warehouse, and I really had no problem with the dust. The very first issue I went to, of course, was for December 21, 1913. And I got the comic section out for him and the puzzle section for myself. So that is how I got the world's first crossword, and I got it for free.
That is incredible. Help me understand your love of table tennis.
Well, table tennis, ping pong, same thing. I grew up on an Arabian horse farm in Crawfordsville, Indiana. And we had a ping pong table in our rec room in the house. So I grew up playing ping pong. I won some trophies when I was in high school. I played it up until my early 30s, I guess. And then I just got busy with life and stopped. In 2001, I picked up the game again when I found a club near me. And I started playing once or twice a week. Then I increased to 3 times a week, and then 4 times a week. And then in 2011, I opened my own club, which is near me, near my home in Pleasantville, New York. And I played every single day, starting with October 3rd, 2012. I literally played every single day. No matter where I traveled in the world, I would find a club where I could play. I'll tell you a couple stories. The World Puzzle Championship was held in Bangalore, India. And you literally cannot fly from New York to Bangalore without missing a day on the calendar, which I couldn't do. So I flew Emirates to Dubai and stopped and played table tennis there for 2.5 days, and then flew on to India. And that's how I kept my streak going, the all-important streak.
Love the commitment.
I'll tell you another story. I had a speaking engagement on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And there's no club in Kauai, but I discovered there was a hotel about a mile from where I was speaking that had an outdoor ping pong table next to a pool. So after my presentation on the morning, I walked the mile to this hotel and sat next to the swimming pool, trying to find if there was anybody who would play ping pong with me. And I felt so ridiculous asking, as all these little kids walked by, hey, little girl, will you play ping pong with me? At the end of the day, the lady who sold shaved ice, she took pity on me and played ping pong. So that's how I kept my streak going that day. Then the next day, I'm flying back to New York. My plane leaves at noon. I had to leave the hotel at 9:30, and my plane doesn't arrive back in New York until after midnight. So if I'm going to keep my streak going that day, I have to play before I leave Hawaii. So I get up early and I go down, I wait outside. There's not even anyone I can ask. There's no little girl or little boy I can ask to play ping pong with me. When the car service arrived at 9 o'clock, the driver said that she apologized for coming early and asked me if I was ready. And I said, yes, but first, would you be willing to play ping pong with me? And at first she said no. And then I explained my streak that had been going on for years at this point. So she parked her limousine and came in and played ping pong with me for 10 minutes. And that's how I kept my streak going that day.
Your streak always has to include a live opponent. It can't be like, against a backboard, you playing against yourself or anything.
Exactly. It has to be with a real person on a real table. Yeah, I played for 4,141 days in a row, which is 11 years and 4 months. And then I had a stroke last year in February of 2024. I was in the hospital, and my partner, he asked the doctors if they would bring in a ping pong table so I could keep my streak going. And not surprisingly, the hospital said no, they wouldn't do that. So that was the end of my streak, which is okay. It actually frees up life quite a bit if you don't have to make plans to play ping pong every day.
I can imagine.
I still play 2 or 3 times a week, but I don't feel compelled to play every day now.
That sounds good, and that also sounds healthy.
Are you ready to explore the minds behind the world's most immersive experiences? Introducing Inventures, the podcast that takes you on a journey beyond imagination. Join us as we reveal the secrets and ideas of the creators who transform dreams into reality. From the masterminds of escape rooms to visionary experience designers, we delve into the stories, challenges, and inspirations that turn ideas into immersive adventures. Inventures is more than a podcast. It's an exploration into the heart of invention, where game design meets storytelling and the possibilities are limitless. Subscribe to the YouTube channel The Cogs Lab and be the first to embark on the adventure with us. Unlock the extraordinary. Your adventure begins now.
The first time that we were in communication, you emailed us at Room Escape Artist many years ago asking about escape rooms. And if memory serves, you were thinking about adding an escape room to the Westchester Table Tennis Center, the facility that you opened in Pleasantville, New York. What can you recall of your aspirations back then?
Well, I love puzzles and games of all sorts. And sometimes the club, there are down times when there aren't people around. And I thought it could be a cool thing to have an escape room in part of the club. And you wrote me a very thoughtful response, some of the things that go into making a great escape room. And I decided afterward that in this big empty room with ping pong tables, that's probably not the ideal location for an escape room. So I've never done that. But I am thinking about some sort of puzzle hunt now. I've also wrote you recently, the 50-acre farm where I grew up in Crawfordsville, Indiana. I am donating it to the town of Crawfordsville for a nature park. And part of the park will have, I'm not sure exactly what yet. One will have a scavenger hunt where you will find signs with letters on them, and you can put them together to form a quotation. That's one of my intended games. So my goal is to have multiple games in this nature park. As people follow the trails over bridges and through the woods, that they will collect clues to solving a giant mystery. It's not an escape room, but it's a similar thing, a scavenger hunt or a puzzle hunt. I think people who like escape rooms will also enjoy this, but I have to work out the mechanics of what will go in this nature park.
That sounds like an incredible project.
I'd like to have multiple games in the nature park, so there'd be something that just kids can go through and find the clues and easily solve it. But then there should be a series of harder puzzles too. You know about the ciphers that are at the CIA headquarters?
Kryptos.
Of course you know that. I think there are 4 levels, is that right? And 3 of them have been cracked so far, and the 4th one has never been solved. Well, I don't think I want to have anything quite that hard on the Shortz Nature Park, but there will be varying levels of difficulty with different things to solve.
Fun fact, the artist who made the Kryptos sculptures that are installed at the CIA, his name is Jim Sanborn. And I tried very hard a couple seasons ago to get him to come on this show because I'm so fascinated by those sculptures. He did write back a very lovely email saying that he was not going to be able to, but I had to send him a very funny email that began with, "I'm not trying to guess the solution to tablet 4. I'm also not a crackpot."
The latest I've read from him is he's about to give a hint or more information on solving that final level.
That is what I have heard as well.
So inquire with him again. Maybe he'll do it on your podcast.
I would love to try. Anyway, I love the idea of anything that adds more mystery into the world in a way that feels a little bit more organic. I think that's something that is really special. And a lot of the times when I'm looking at all sorts of different immersive games, one of the things that I am looking for is what captures that feeling that you have when you're like 10 years old and you want there to be greater mystery in the world. And it may not be there, but you feel like it is. That's the thing that I get really captured by when I see people pull that off.
Nice. It's sort of like when you're a kid at Christmas, you have no idea what's coming. What kind of toy are you going to get? And as you get older, I don't get excited by Christmas anymore because I have everything that I could possibly want. There is absolutely nothing, I could say almost nothing you could get me for Christmas that would make me go, wow. If there was such a thing, I would have found it and already bought it for myself.
The gift and curse of being an adult.
Yeah.
Even as a child, but even as an adult, it's, for me, a lot of times, and one of the reasons why I like escape rooms and these immersive puzzling adventures is that the idea that the world is more magical than you think it is. You know, this looks like a normal farm. This looks like a normal place. And then under the surface, there's all these mysteries for you to uncover if you're clever enough. Like a lot of my heroines and my heroes in books, they were smart enough to spot the patterns and uncover the magic. And so that's really what I'm looking for in puzzles, in escape rooms, puzzling adventures, all things of that kind. So I was really excited to hear about what you're doing with this farm.
Yeah, thanks. I think as humans, we like to solve problems and solve mysteries. And that's part of what makes us human. We're all faced with problems and mysteries in everyday life, and most of them go unsolved. With a crossword or a Sudoku or an escape room, when you find that ultimate solution, it's very satisfying. It's like you've conquered something, you've put the world in order, and it's very satisfying.
For decades, the name Will Shortz has been synonymous with puzzles. Setting aside your work with NPR and the New York Times, you have over 100 published puzzle books. I'm curious, how do you choose what projects to take on?
First of all, I'll tell you, I have more than 700 puzzle books of all sorts now.
Damn, it's hard to get these numbers. These numbers are so big.
Let's see. I'll tell you my default answer when I'm asked to do anything is yes, which doesn't mean I say yes to everything. But if someone asks me to do something, I like to please, and I will say yes if I possibly can. There's only so much time to do what you can. People ask me to do things that I just don't have time to do, but if I can, then I will. I do what's important. My philosophy of life, personally, is two things. First of all, to enjoy myself. And I really enjoy myself every day. I want to make the world a little better for being here. So I work on doing that every day as well.
I love that. I'm curious on the subject of saying yes to things. Has your reputation for being professionally smart ever held you back from doing something?
Well, I think people think I'm much smarter than I am.
You and me both.
If I enter a crossword tournament, honestly, I would probably finish in the middle of the pack. What I think I'm very good at is creating clues that are going to entertain people. I always think of the audience. I always think of whoever it is who's going to be solving whatever I do. I like to push people to their limit, whatever that is. But I like people to break through in the end and to be able to solve the puzzle because that's where they get the satisfaction. So I think I'm pretty good at that. That's my goal.
Now, a lot of times we have guests that come on and they have this imposter syndrome. Do you ever feel like you suffer from imposter syndrome?
Yeah, people think that I'm a genius. I would never go on Jeopardy because I would show my ignorance there. It would be on full display with everybody.
After all these years, do you still love solving puzzles?
Yes, I do. It would be sad to be a professional puzzle person and not enjoy solving them. So absolutely. When I'm on a plane going somewhere, I will do the puzzles of my competitors, if you want to put it that way. Sure, absolutely. I love puzzles of all sorts. I'm a member of the National Puzzlers League, which is the world's oldest puzzlers organization. It was founded in 1883. And I'm the program director for the annual convention, which I've done every year since 1976. I'd say for the last 20, 25, 30 years, Saturday night at the convention has an extravaganza of some sort. It's a team competition where many groups of solvers try to solve a series of challenges. And once they solve those, they will get another series of challenges. And then once they get those, there'll be another series of challenges, all leading to an ultimate answer. And people who like escape rooms would love these extravaganzas that we do at the convention. This year, I think it was our 183rd convention, something like that, was held in Minneapolis. And next year's convention will be held in July in Bloomington, Indiana. So anyone who is interested in solving challenging word puzzles and perhaps meeting lots of other puzzle people could go to puzzlers.org and read about it. And then you should think about coming to the NPL convention next year.
What's your NPL nom?
My nom de plume is Will's. It's actually capital W, capital I, capital L, then a short Z. So just in those 5 letters, you get my entire name.
That's great. I like that. How has your relationship with puzzles changed over the course of your career?
Of course, I started solving puzzles when I was very young, and then I was just a solver. I'll tell you a story. In the first grade, I think this says so much about me. In the first grade, we were supposed to read this short story, 2 pages, that was full of compound words like highway. And the assignment was to find all the compound words in the story and put them on a list. Well, I didn't understand the concept of compound word. I was looking for every possible word that you could break into parts to make separate words. Like I put home on my list because it's the word ho plus me. So I had a longer list than anybody else.
I'm going to make that my NPL nom de plume.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. So, Will, what comes next for you?
Later this month, I'm going to Hungary for the World Puzzle Championship. This is an event I founded in 1992 in New York. The idea is that it's a championship for people to solve puzzles of logic, and basically non-word puzzles. So it doesn't matter what country you're from, what language you speak, or what culture you have. You can come to this championship, and if you can solve Sudoku, Ken-Ken, and other logic puzzles of that sort, you can be the world champion. So I founded this event in 1992. It goes to a different country every year. This year, the event will be held in Hungary. So later this month, I'm going there.
Exciting.
So, Will, what's the best way for people to follow your work or to connect with you?
Best way to connect with me is to join the National Puzzlers League or come to the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament. You'll see me in person, or come to visit me at the Westchester Table Tennis Center in Pleasantville, New York, where I am on most days. You know, I love to meet people and talk with people. I love to talk about puzzles, of course, which is why I've enjoyed speaking with you today. It reminds me of Margaret Farrer, who was the first New York Times crossword editor. And a friend and I took her out to dinner, I guess. And she said afterward that she just loved to talk about puzzles. And that will always be true of me.
That will be true of us as well.
Will, thank you so much for joining us. It's not that often that you get to meet someone who has the status and stature that you have and have had for so long. And it's even less often that you meet someone with that status and stature and they are so incredibly open and kind and generous. And I've gotten to know you a little bit through mostly meeting in passing over the years. And I've gotten to know you even more through talking to all of the other friends that we have in common, people like Eric Berlin and David Kwong. And what has become so obvious and apparent to me is the amount of inspiration that you have showered on the people in the puzzling world by believing in them, by being open and answering their questions and formative years or key points in their careers. It's so incredible how much reach all of that generosity has and will have so far into the future. And I could not be more thankful for having you join us on this show. You have been an aspirational guest from day one of this show, and we've just been so incredibly excited and so very thankful to have you join us. So thank you so much.
David, that's very sweet. I really appreciate it. One of my goals in life in puzzles has always been to bring people together through puzzles, which I've tried to do through Games Magazine and the New York Times and the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament and the National Puzzlers League. And puzzles can be a great way to bring people together. And I've always tried to do that. Thank you, David. And thank you, Peachy.
Thank you. It's been so inspiring to have you on this show. We were so excited. This has been wonderful chatting with you, Will. Thank you for your time.
This episode of Reality Escape Pod is produced by Teresa Piazza, who is a crossword beast, with support by Lisa Spira, Eric Berlin, and David Kwong. We're edited by Steve Ewing of Stand Inside Media, music by Ryan Elder, logo by Janine Proct, and all of this is brought to you by RoomEscapeArtist.com, your home for well-researched, rational, and reasonably humorous escape room and immersive gaming content and events. Thank you to all of our highest tier Patreon supporters: Chris Laughlin, Panic Room, Olivier Escape, Escaparium, Breakout Games, Derek Tam, Andy Mincer, Mystery Unfolds, Karen, Byron Delmonico, Keystone Escape Games, and Rex Miller. Thank you to all of you for your ongoing support.
I also have some one-time thank yous for some patrons who have joined recently at a higher tier. Thank you so much to Captain Mew, Ian Hickson, and Michelle Cervenka. Welcome to our Patreon, and thank you so much for your support. If you've made it all the way to the end of the episode, you're still here, looks like you had a pretty good time listening, we would love it if you took that good time and left us a review. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It helps with making people find our podcast, and it even helps us with getting guests on the show.
And if writing a review is a bridge too far, just share the link to an episode that you like with someone who you think will appreciate it. Word of mouth, that is the thing that helps us grow. Thank you so much for supporting us, however you're doing it, whether it is on Patreon, with a review, or just sharing a link. We appreciate you.
I'll tell you one last story. I think it was in the 1960s when I was growing up in Indiana. Our family subscribed to the Chicago Tribune. And there was an article there about a road hunt where people would solve a puzzle and would lead them to another location where they would drive to. And then they would get another puzzle there and so on and so forth. And one of the places, the teams arrived at a diner where they were all given glasses of lemonade. And as people were sitting there enjoying their lemonade, wondering when they were going to get their next clue to solve, and what they didn't realize was that in an ice cube in one of the drinks, that was the clue for the next place they were supposed to go. And the person who wrote the story had already drunk their lemonade with their ice cube, so they did not have the clue for the next place. I love that story so much that when I ran a puzzle hut at Mohonk Mountain House a number of years ago, we did a similar thing. Teams arrived in the dining room and they were given drinks with no other instructions, so people were wandering around the dining room looking for other clues, not realizing that in one of the ice cubes in their drink, they had their next puzzle.